So we have the connectivity on sort of upper end cable modem subscriptions, a couple of megabits per second upload. That's always the crucial missing part. If you have the upload speed, you can connect with low enough latency through the through the routers and so on to do maybe 500 miles and be able to feel tight. So this was our product launch at NAMM, 450 miles. We had a demo slave who played for 4 days. He was at NAMM the whole time, just working with people who stepped up. So that's a very recent project. It's sort of, we're learning all of the use cases actually. People are asking to do this for reasons that we never thought about. My favorite is actually someone who said, well, I work with this band in LA. I got this great thing going with the singer. I just don't ever want to be in the same room with her. So we'll keep finding more reasons. So I'm going to blast through a bunch of just examples so you can see sort of the breadth of how this technology is taking off. And the rest of these examples won't use this thing. This is the gizmo that we debuted at NAMM, which is basically guitar input, headset, microphone, and wired Ethernet in a small package, just to take some of the headache out of setup, which the rest of these that I'm going to show you are very custom, took lots of setup, prep, custom software, and so on. So you'll notice at this distance, we're playing very open, right? This isn't time. But for me, the takeaway was that here's a person who I met musically, who I never met physically. We started to share ideas. This is an improv, and we're just throwing things back and forth in front of an audience of 300. Going back into the lab and just asking the question, when does synchronous rhythm break down? At what delay, what's temporal separation should we just give up? Is there a magic number beyond which you should do something different? So we geared up, asked, this is a large number of pairs of students who were asked to clap a rhythm together, which sounds like this. So that's their task. Just try and play together. We didn't say how. Just, set them in different rooms. They couldn't see each other. They had headphones on, and they were clapping in front of a microphone that was really close. So very little air delay, just the delay that we manipulated electronically, and these are the different steps. 77 milliseconds is just about what we experienced from Stanford to Iceland, I'd say, something like that. So 77 milliseconds in the lab, though, has an effect that's very noticeable. So check this out.
Sean, are you having trouble? I'm just wondering if there's something going on.
I hope you went through IRB on this.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
We actually did, yeah. And we had to change the protocol because people were starting to blame it on their partner. Right. And they were randomly paired up and said, why'd you put me with this person that can't clap? So these blue wavy lines are the tempo as we're measuring it from the recordings. So they kind of, if they're horizontal, that would be the best case. Horizontal would mean you're not speeding up or slowing down. And 77, the one we just heard, would be, all of the 77 trials are in the bottom right. You can see that deacceleration that's pretty pronounced. I'll pull it up with this if you're hearing.
the first really big buy-in, not only from the big studios, but also from industry. And a huge breakthrough for us was Tektronix has come out with a GPS synchronization device. So we're able to tell the time at all of the distant locations, essentially mitigate the time delays, find out where the theoretical point is in time and space, and then monitor that at that time, and space at our kind of sweet spot. It's a little complicated. But the fact that we were able to put a little GPS mushroom on 100 feet of cable outside of the building and have an absolute time reference is huge. And we were able to absolutely do sample synchronization across 3 audio streams to subframe, basically frame edge synchronization. So 0 latency, picture to sound effects, score, and dialogue. So we started using beta versions of their software, and that allowed us to then use the GPS to sync all these machines together. So essentially, the data stays wherever it gets recorded. We set up these Pro Tool systems as though we've got a suite of Pro Tool studios next door, line them up to our transport. We're touching more than 1,000 parameters of filters and plugins, and are able to run the whole mix operation from a single transport control. Last thing is now there has been a request for proposals from the Synagrid and other groups, including NTT and photonic networking experts and media streaming experts, asking for a long-term research project that will essentially attempt to codify and begin to build standards for the next 10 years of digital studio practices. And networking is a huge, in fact, central component of that whole push.
Both of these developments are tremendously exciting in terms of being able to produce music, being able to perform music. And the areas that I'm going to be looking at, providing some insight onto, is our work that has to do a lot with education at the university level, as well as performance and teaching, and composing, and giving students and giving composers a different way of thinking about music performance. 3 things. I'm going to talk mostly about the Laptop Orchestra of Louisiana, the LOLs. But I'm going to talk about laptop orchestras in general as a vehicle for teaching about music technology and the way in which networks are used in that. But also we're going to talk about music instruction and music performance at a distance that relates to some of the stuff that Chris and Peter have already talked about. Just as a laptop orchestra, what is a laptop orchestra? Essentially, it's an idea that kind of started off at Princeton, spread to Stanford, and is now kind of all over the place. There's a long history as well, but it's getting groups of people to use laptops as musical instruments and using networks, wireless networks, to synchronize, interconnect, coordinate, and control those laptops. Sometimes they're ad hoc groups, sometimes they're fixed groups. They range in size from 5 to, usually they're about a minimum of 4 or 5 at a time, to as many as 30, 40, I don't know how many goes put together, 20. So at Stanford they have 20. But the idea certainly is you could go almost as large as you want.
I'd like to start, maybe you guys could talk a little bit about how challenging expectations can be, and how challenging it can be to transcend those expectations. Bill, you'd spent 9 years in the Navy, you're working at an airplane manufacturer, while Ain't No Sunshine was going to, #1 on the charts. And Justin, you had been in the phenomenally successful band NSYNC prior to releasing, your first solo record. And so there were different challenges for the expectations. For Bill's...
Doesn't sound equally as hardship, does it?
Well, but I would say that I think...
Time in the Navy.
But I think